Welcome back to the North Star Takes podcast. I'm Bailey, he's Jacob, and we're a Minnesota sports podcast. If you're a Minnesota sports fan, please click the like button on this video and feel free to subscribe to our channel as well if you haven't done so already. And today we're going to be talking the Minnesota Timberwolves. After what was a promising 5-game win streak, including a nice win on the road in Indiana, but mostly a win streak that was made up of injured teams that were not playing the Wolves at full strength. Then the Wolves seemed like they had one in the bag in Charlotte, and then they just completely stopped playing basketball in the second half. And then, of course, Sunday in Minneapolis, the Warriors come to town and just absolutely rout the Minnesota Timberwolves and basically expose every single weakness that the Timberwolves have. So the Wolves are sitting at 10-10. We're 20 games into the season, about a quarter of the way there, and we're 10th in the West. The West is very bunched up. We're within a couple games of the 3 seed. We're still not too far out from the 1 seed even, really. So I guess my question for you, Liberta, is, am I overreacting and thinking that the Wolves are in trouble here? Just because, I know it takes teams time to figure things out, but it's like we take 1 step forward, 2 steps back. We can never just seem to quite put it all together. I thought the Warriors game would be a real good litmus test to see how good this team actually could be. And Rudy Gobert and Cat are basically getting run off the floor because they can't get back on defense. Anthony Edwards doesn't show up for the first half of the game, and he's playing catch-up in the second half. Horrible shooting, horrible defense. And then just the letdown in Charlotte. They completely just didn't respect the Charlotte Hornets in the second half of that game, thought the game was in the bag, and they let go of the rope like they tend to do so often. So I'm seeing some serious professional issues here, just in terms of this team acting like a professional basketball team, treating their opponents with respect, playing hard until the end of the game. These are all things we didn't see a ton of last year. So I guess, do you think the Wolves are in trouble here? Do you think this is a concerning trend, even though it's been very up and down?
Yes and no. I think there are certainly some things here that are cause for concern. I think the issue, like probably coming into the season and thinking about, would this work, would this not, having the 2 bigs like Cat and Gobert just hasn't been done very many times in the past and successfully at that since probably the 90s or something for the most part, like over a sustained stretch. And you think about these two, I guess that was the big issue, like you mentioned in the Warriors game, get back on defense. And that's kind of one of the scenarios that I think fans probably thought of, like how this team would like match up with a group like the Warriors. So like how we stack up against the best in the West to basically see if we're a legitimate championship contender with this group or not. And I think this is a huge scare because it's like, well, can us playing big, will that really work against like a small ball team like the Warriors? Like, can we keep up with that? Like, can we kind of go against the grain of the modern day NBA and win like that? And like early results are no. that like it doesn't look promising. I think that the Warriors, like you said, ran us off the floor. They scored 47 points in the first quarter, and in total in a game in regulation, they scored nearly 140, which is just downright unacceptable. So I think there's a lot of work to be done. But at the same time, I think we can pump the brakes just a little bit on the criticism, just because it is 20 games, which is, we're getting pretty close to that territory of being a large enough sample size to be like, yep, this is who this team is. But at the same time, there still is 75% of the season left to be played. So like, there's plenty of time to get it together, figure it out. But yeah, I think this team also has to want it. I think that there has to be some sort of killer instinct that emerges here. I think this team will rest on its laurels for halves of games at a time. Like, just kind of thought that Hornets game was in the bag, and we just could stop really putting in a ton of effort into winning that game against a 5-win Charlotte team, but that clearly wasn't the case. And then we got ran over in the second half and lost the game we should have won. And then that Warriors game was just, we were down 20 basically the whole time. So I think it's very up and down so far. So I think there's still more to be learned, but early results are more bad than good.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've kind of gone over in previous videos what's been more disappointing so far to start the season. Forcing things to Rudy Gobert. Anthony Edwards, consistency wise, just hasn't been there so far early this season. And it's like, yeah, okay, he's put up pretty good stats for the most part, but we can't be going halves of games where he scores 4 points
No.
or he's just not very involved. I mean, there's still clips circling of him with his hands on his hips on certain set plays where he knows he's not involved. Like, is there an issue there, attitude wise, mentality wise? Like, that needs to be kind of figured out, I think. Um, Karl-Anthony Towns, he's sure been up and down with his fouling, but offensively, he's probably been our best player so far, just super efficient, although he has struggled from three lately. I guess the thing I want to dive into more today, though, is the Rudy Gobert part of this equation because
Yeah.
we traded for him. Obviously, we give up all these assets, one of the biggest trades, if not the biggest trade in NBA history in terms of assets given up. Um, and it's like, the guy, he'll get you 21 and 15 every once in a while, or he gets a fair amount of rebounds, but it's like you throw him a ball down low, he can't catch the ball. D'Lo's trying to run these pick and rolls with him. Half the passes Rudy can't handle because D'Lo's bounce passing it to him. They're lower passes. He's got to reach down to grab them, and he can't grab it. So I'd say the most concerning part about Rudy to me is I thought he maybe had a little bit more of an offensive bag in terms of maybe low post moves. Get him the ball down in the post. Can he do anything with it? At this point, it doesn't look like he can. And then, of course, just the inability to catch the ball, similar to Jared Vanderbilt last year, but Vanderbilt was more athletic. He was quicker. Obviously, was more of a hustle player. So it's like, are we kind of getting screwed here on this Rudy Gobert deal? I don't want to jump to too many conclusions yet because overall, I'd say he's been solid, but he just hasn't quite been the impact player I think they were hoping. And maybe they was wrong of them to assume he'd be an impact offensive player. And they truly just need to start running things more through Ant and Cat rather than trying to feed Rudy his touches. But at the same time, Rudy, you can tell Rudy gets upset when he's not getting the ball. And I think that affects his defense as well. So they got all sorts of things to balance here. But overall, in general, how are you feeling about the Rudy Gobert addition?
Kind of the same as the team's performance this year. It's a very up and down. I think some nights I just love it, and then some nights it's like, man, why did we make this move? Like, is this gonna set us back for a while? It's super. It's in the air right now, but I guess as far as his offensive game goes, I think his defense is fine. I think when he has defensive lapses, it's probably more about attitude, really trickling from the offensive game, like you said. And I think that he offensively, we didn't really expect a whole lot. Like we at least us as fans, I don't think thought there was a whole lot there. Maybe the front office had envisioned more, but I think what's disappointing is that even for the limited expectations we had for him offensively, I feel like he's even worse than that because I don't think he's even meeting those because, like you said, he just has these terrible hands. He can't catch anything. Like you thought he'd at least be good enough for pick and roll lobs and things like that, but it's like that's really sketchy right now. So it's like, what good is he on the offensive end besides collecting offensive boards here and there? I mean, I don't love what I'm seeing, and like I told this to Hugh and our good friend of the show, Jackson. It's like he he has even worse hands than Vando, and like that doesn't make sense because like I didn't think it could get any worse than that because like Vando in the low block and like running the baseline couldn't catch anything last year, but it's like his effort and his energy and his really just quickness up and down the floor was there where like Rudy it's just not the same. So it's like, man, I just expected a more easy 10, 12, even 15 points some nights to come to Rudy, but it's like that's just not happening. So it's like I don't love what I'm seeing there. I'm hoping that gets better, but at the same time, like is this guy really going to get better at catching the ball? I don't know. So I think that's a little worrisome. I think defensively he's fine. Like I think, like I said, the lapses come from him probably getting in his own head on the offensive end more than anything. So like if we find some sort of rhythm, some sort of flow for him in whatever capacity that might be offensively, and like just running a peak offense, I guess they're getting pretty close to it. I think then that'll in turn make it better defensively. But man, it's just I don't really know what to say at this point because like it just kind of depends on the day you talk to me about it. Because I mean, sometimes I'm like, yeah, this was the right move, but then other days I'm like, man, why did we do this?
Yeah, and I feel the same way. It's so frustrating how up and down this team has been, which I guess it's a good thing they're not off to some horrible start where they dug
Sure,
themselves this deep hole. I
it's
mean,
definitely been worse than 10 and 10 before.
yeah, exactly. So it's like, they're sitting around 500. Like I mentioned earlier, they're only a few games back of the 3 seed, which in my mind, I'm kind of keeping an eye on like the 3 and 4 seed.
Mhm.
Obviously, being a top seed would be phenomenal, but I kind of expect a team like Phoenix or even Memphis maybe to jump up there and just kind of run away with that 1 seed at some point. So I'm not expecting us to climb all the way up there, but just stay within reach of that 4 seed. Home court's obviously the goal here. For sure, not, being the 6 seeds, you're avoiding the play-in, I think would be ideal. So we're not off to this horrible start. I mean, we obviously can recover from this. We can get back into the swing of things. That 5-game win streak really helped us, but it's just the fashion we're losing some of these games. It's the effort things. It's how the team is looking, eye test wise when you're watching them on the court. That's definitely concerning. And you and I have talked about it ad nauseum, but this thing needs to run through Anthony Edwards. And it's like there's still so much focus on the D'Lo and Gobert pick and roll. And, D'Lo as the starting point guard, the ball is in his hands so much, which on the nights he's playing well is great. But how many nights has he been playing well? It's like lately he's been a little better. He's hit some more shots. He's, kept the turnovers down more. He's passing a little more. But it's like that only lasts for so long. And I just think the more you can get Ant in a playmaking role, he can find Rudy, he can find Cat, he could even find D'Lo and McDaniels. So it's like, there's options. I think there's more options. There's more good that can come out of an Ant playmaking style, and we can, beat that drum all day. But it's like, I wonder how long it's going to take until we kind of shift the focus offensively for this team, and then defensively. I mean, I'm pretty concerned because Ant is not playing good defense in general.
Sure.
McDaniels obviously is a good on-ball defender, but he's about the only good on-ball defender we got out there. And, all these guys are getting past the initial man and getting in on Rudy, and that obviously Rudy's caught in no man's land. So it's making things tough for everybody. The effort's not quite there. The want to is not there. The desire to be great, the Mamba mentality. I don't see it in any of these players. And I'm kind of disappointed because I thought that Ant might have that in him. Just based on what we had seen, especially in the playoffs last season. I mean, maybe it's still in there somewhere. Maybe he's just kind of deferring a little more because of the way this offense is being run. But I don't know. There's just so many different concerns for me right now that I just wish through 20 games had been solved a little more,
Oh, yeah, totally. I'm at the point, I think it's a great thing to bring up. I think that we just don't have that alpha on the team. Like, who do you think really is there for us in the moments of adversity? Like, I just don't see it with anybody, quite frankly, right now, at least anybody that should be for us, because I think we have a bunch of guys that are very talented in their own right and can do a lot of good things, but it's like we need somebody. I think it's just picking yourselves up in moments of really, I don't know, bad times, I guess, and just times where you gotta pick yourself up when another team goes on a run. Like, we can't just keep letting it snowball.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more with you. And I don't know. I guess hopefully they can figure it out here within these next several games. They got Washington, then they got Memphis coming up. So, I mean, Washington's not great, but Memphis would be another good test. And obviously it's probably our biggest rival at the moment. So it'll be interesting to see what they do from here. But do you have any other final thoughts before we take off here?
Yeah, I guess it's just I think we just got to be patient. I think it's easy to jump the gun a little bit here and kind of worry about this team, not only for this season, but beyond. And I think we don't look great right now. I think there's a lot of meat on the bone, but I still trust Chris Finch that we'll be able to push the right buttons and figure it out enough to the point where we're in a spot where we can make a push at the end of this year, come second half of the season. I still have faith in that, but I mean, check that back with me once we played 40 games and we're still just kind of up and down, then I'll be a little bit more worried, I guess. But I still think there's a lot left to be determined here, and I think we just gotta trust that they're going to figure it out. And I know right now it doesn't feel like it, but there's just too much talent here. That's the thing I always go back to, is there's just too much talent here to really overlook and just not feel good about them. I don't know, eventually putting together a nice winning streak. Like, I know we just won 5 in a row against a bunch of banged up teams, but it is a little frustrating that we're not taking advantage right now when nobody in the West really is kind of asserting themselves as the best team or one of the best, and just kind of run away with it at the top. So it would be nice if we would be able to string together one of those winning streaks that kind of gives us or at least makes us rise through the standings and have something we can really fall back on in these times where we start losing a game here and there. So, because I know right now every loss can move you up or move you down substantially, as well as every win can move you up quite a bit because it's so bunched together.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself, man. I'm hoping uh, your plea for patience, um, turns out for the better because I'm starting to lose my patience, and that's just kind of the way I am as a fan. But I mean, they are professionals. Hopefully, they can get this figured out. The more time they gel together, all that good stuff. So, but we'll leave it at that for now. We'll come back with more Wolves videos later on here. That will do it for this edition of the North Star Takes podcast. Like I mentioned earlier, please click the like button on this video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so already. Feel free to give us a follow on both Twitter and Instagram and let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. Do you think the Timberwolves are in trouble? Do you think they'll be able to figure this thing out? What do you make of the start to the season for all of our big name players or even bench players that maybe haven't contributed the way you'd expect? Yeah, just let us know your thoughts below. And until next time, thanks for watching.